medical professional wondering what you need to know now about estate planning in case you died tomorrow, stay tuned. You're in the right place to get some answers. Let's start with a question. What if today was your last day on the planet? Something happened and you died. What would that look like for you, for your family, for the people that you care about? That's why we're having this conversation today. Conversations need to happen to protect ourselves, our family, and the people in our world. So in this episode, I'm going to cover the top things that I think you need to know. It's not meant to be a deep dive. I could talk for 2 hours, if not 2 days on this subject based on the things that I've been through on this subject. But at the end of this video, I'll give you access to more information so that you can educate yourselves in a safe space, as well as the ability to make your own plan. So I'm going to share some stories along the way because I think stories work better than facts and data, and we remember the stories more easily. What I will share is that everything I show you today is things that I've done for my family, for my friends, and for my clients, and I'm willing to share those with you. So let's start with this picture. Imagine that as you left this earth, your family was dropped into a foreign country where they don't speak the language, they didn't have any money, they didn't have any resources. How would they survive? No instructions, and they don't speak the language. What would they do? This is what it can be like if you don't leave them the proper instructions. You're gone. So I'm saying here, imagine that one of you is not there. And this is what an estate plan is. It's your operating instructions for your loved ones once you're gone. So did you know that everyone, and I do mean everyone, already has an estate plan? It's either the government's plan for you or your own customized plan. So who's in charge of your plan? When we hear the word estate, most people think of rich people. We think of very rich people that have estates. But let's define exactly what an estate is. It's everything that you own. It's your real estate. It's your home. It's your personal belongings. It's your cash. It's your retirement accounts. And it's your debt. The minute that you die, all of this is up in the air, right? That is your estate. It all comes into question. So it doesn't matter if all you have is a car and some stuff, or if you're very wealthy. The questions are the same. So knowing what's in your estate is the first step in planning. Next is understanding what can happen with your estate and how you can control what happens with it. Sometimes when we hear the word estate, we think of all these famous people and all the property and things that they own, but actually we all have an estate. Yours can be quite small, can be very large. As I already mentioned, your estate is all of the things that you own. We could call these your assets. These are the positive things, the assets, they have value. Your bank accounts, your home, your cars, your things, your company, your 401k, really any asset of value, including sentimental value. This could be something that's completely worthless, but it does mean something to you. So your estate plan includes planning for people in your life. Here we're talking about planning for yourself. What are your wishes if something happens to you? What about your children? Planning for your family to prevent financial hardship. That's what we're going to talk about today. So your priority needs to be first planning for yourself. I'm going to say that again. Your first priority needs to be planning for yourself. So this slide shows in the orange boxes what you're planning for, and in the blue, how you're doing it. So first off, we've got planning for your end-of-life care, okay? This, as a medical professional, you may see this a lot with people in the hospitals, and how do they want their end of life to be handled? So we want that documented so that it's your choice and not other people in your life that are deciding that when that time comes. So how we do that, advanced planning, forms, and directives. Next, we've got planning for disability and incapacity. And this is designating someone to make the decisions for you if you are incapacitated. Next is estate tax planning and strategies. So taking care of those that you care about the most. And then lastly, here's planning for the distribution of your estate. This is the control, the when, the why, and how your assets will be distributed. So what I want you to look at here is in the orange boxes, those are all things that need to be done before you get into a critical situation, okay? So they can be done now. But what I'm saying is when you're in the hospital on your deathbed is the worst time to be trying to do this stuff, right? You're probably not in your right mind. Your family's freaking out. So we want these things to be taken care of inside of your plan. So what is probate? So under your state superior court, the probate court administers the probate code, which controls an individual's assets at death or incapacity. A case begins when an attorney positions the court to make a determination of competence or disability or to process a will at death. An executor collects assets and pays debts, fees, and costs. The remainder of the estate is distributed to designated beneficiaries. So probate is a public process. I'm going to say that again. It's a public process. When you go through probate, all of your stuff is out there. It can be in the newspaper, right? There can be a 24-month delay, and minimum fees are based on gross value of the assets. Okay. Again, gross value of the assets, which means even if you've got debt, it doesn't matter. It's the gross value of the assets before debt. Okay. So why do we want to avoid probate? Here's 3 good reasons to avoid probate. Time. So time, the probate court processes take 1 year or more. I've seen it take 3 to 4 years in some close family friends. 2, it's public. All probate court filings and hearings are open to the public. These may be published. They may be on a website. They may be in a newspaper, right? 3 is the cost. The probate fees for executors and attorneys are set based on a gross value. I mentioned that before, gross value of the estate without offsetting it for debt. So you may think you have a lot of debt, but it's the gross value, meaning your home and everything else is how they determine what the fees are going to be for that. Okay, so now that we know that, there's a couple different options when it comes to your estate plan. Let's compare a will and a living trust. A will allows you to name beneficiaries and appoint guardians for minors. Okay, a will must go through probate. And I'm going to pause on this for just a moment because a huge part of the population believes that if they have a will, it will not go through probate. So let me tell you something. If you don't have a will, it goes through probate. If you have a will, it goes through probate. The difference is when you have a will, you have some instructions. It's still going to take a while to go through there. You have some instructions, but you're not avoiding probate. Okay. So you've documented it, so it goes through probate. The alternative is a living trust. So a living trust avoids probate and offers more control over asset distribution, but it must be funded to be effective. So what does that mean? Funding the trust means you've transferred ownership on the assets. One common mistake is creating a trust, but not funding it. Make sure to transfer the ownership of your assets to the trust. So this includes real estate, bank accounts, and your personal property. Properly funding your trust ensures it is working as intended. I've heard nightmare stories of people setting up trusts, even through lawyers. The funding never happened. And if the funding, meaning you're transferring the assets and applying it to the trust, if that doesn't happen, it's still going through probate. Okay. So what it kind of means is that there was no point in having the trust in the first place. So this is really important, probably the most important thing that you can do. Okay. So certainly, while not the intention, you need to follow the steps. Let me give you an example. My trust is the beneficiary of my life insurance policies, right? So I said, I've got, you name the beneficiary. It's not a person, it's the trust. And then the trust has the operating instructions in there for how the money from the life insurance is going to be distributed to my family and my beneficiaries. Okay. So over time, I may change the beneficiaries in the trust for different reasons, but everything points to the trust. It makes it much, much simpler. And you know, I don't have to keep checking beneficiaries because I know my beneficiaries are set up as the trust. So if you have minor children or family members with special needs, we want to create special provisions. These are crucial. We want to designate guardians for minors in your will and consider setting up a special needs trust to provide financial support without affecting eligibility for government benefits. While people don't like to think about this, what if something happened to you and your partner, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever? If something happens to both of you, who's going to look after your kids and others that depend on you? So we want to make sure that that's fully documented, right? We all think that we're going to die later. Okay. We all read in the paper every day of people that thought they were going to die later and they didn't die later. So we want to take care of that now. The question is, what happens if you die, the children are minors? What happens if you die and the children are over 18 or over 25? All of that can be documented inside of your estate plan documents. So your choices equal your results. If you do nothing, the government and the probate process applies state laws for legacy distribution. This means it's completely out of your control. Okay. Second, you can create a will. If you create a will, the probate court for the will with fees, time, and public records. So again, either doing nothing or creating a will, either one lands you in probate court. It's just that with the will, you do have some instructions, but you're still paying and it's still public. The last choice here is creating a revocable living trust. So your trustees, the person that you name, the persons that you name, administer your assets at disability and at death in weeks, not in years. These are your operating instructions for what you want to happen. It avoids the courts and it avoids the lawyers and the long period of time. So a basic estate plan is going to include and integrate the following items. It's going to have a family living trust. It's going to have a pour over will. It's got a durable power of attorney. It's got advanced health directives. It's got marital property declaration, nomination of guardians, and deed transfer and change of ownership where that's needed. So while this sounds complicated and expensive, it doesn't have to be. So what are your next steps? Evaluate the benefits of a family trust to meet all of your legal plans. Again, no probate, delay, cost, or public records, double your estate tax exemptions, provide for administration at potential disability, and establish plans for your family's needs and distributions. So create your living trust and entire estate plans. Help us here if you need it. Estate planning is a crucial step to ensure your family's future is secure. So for years, people asked me about how they could easily create their estate plans. Many had started a process with an attorney, and every time they needed to make an adjustment or changes, the lawyer quoted them a new price to make the change, usually thousands. So unfortunately, what can happen over time is every time you make a change, you're adding thousands of dollars to the bill. So one of my clients is a medical professional in New Jersey, and he went through this whole process when his mom died. So his mom passed away. She had a will. She did have a will, and she had property in Florida as well as property in New Jersey. So he was the executor of the estate. Now he's dealing with 2 states, and he had to go through probate in both states. So this process for him took him about 4 years. And as he was going through the process, he says, you know what, I need to create a plan for my family. So just in case something happens, they don't have to go through all of this again. So he did that. They went to an attorney that was there locally in New Jersey. They created a plan. Now, fast forward 5 years later, they needed to make some changes to their plan. And the attorney says, that's great. I'd be glad to do that. And wanted to charge him another $3,000 to do it. Now, remember, they paid several $1,000s to start with for the original plan. So boy, was he frustrated. He saw me on a webinar that I was doing for his company. We were talking about estate planning, called me up and says, hey, I want to look and see what you're talking about and what you did. So I had, after all these requests from people saying, how do I do my estate plan? I'd done a lot of research, looked at companies. I wasn't satisfied with a lot of what I saw, but I found a company that had lawyers write all of the state specific stuff. So for somebody in New Jersey, it's New Jersey law. Somebody in New York, it's New York law. Somebody in Georgia, it's Georgia law. And that's really important because you can't have a plan. Your plan is effective where you live when you write the plan. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't move later on, but the rules should be based on where you're living at the time. So what I did with this company was I said, you know what, I'm going to check it out. I'm going to do a trial, and I'm going to see what it would be like to create a plan for my new family. So you may remember from other webinars that I spent many, many, many years single. Well, now I had a new family and I had other things to look after. I had my assets, I had my husband's assets, and we had, children that we're leaving things to. So I created a plan inside their tool. And the key thing that I wanted was I wanted it to be easy. I wanted it to be accessible. I wanted it that I could get to it 24 hours a day, no matter where in the world that I might be. And so I was able to do that. And I also wanted something that every time I made a change, there wasn't additional charges. Now, I might have to get the new documents notarized or something like that, but it's totally under my control. So that's what I did. So what we know is that our lives change over time. Our lives next year are not going to be the same that they are this year. So certainly when we pass away, thinking that might be 5, 10, 20 years down the road, our lives are going to be different. So there will be changes. So I just wanted to be able to control that. And I wanted flexibility and accessibility. These were key points to me. So what I know is that the US legal system is very expensive, but protecting your family shouldn't be. Many people don't have an estate plan because they can't justify many hours of attorney fees it'll take. They're thinking $300, $400, $500 an hour to pay attorneys to write this up, and they have no idea how long that will take. What I can tell you is depending on where you are in the country, it could even be by city or by state, the attorney rates are different based on what it is that you want. So now that you're here today watching this, I want you to look at this differently. So people have been doing their taxes with software at home for decades, right? This company took this idea and applied it to an equally complex area of creating a revocable living trust and estate plan. They've eliminated the expense, the time, and the complexity from the process. So they've got a simple interview that's going to ask you the questions in plain language and allows your system to tailor your plan to the needs, whether your estate is large or small. You can accomplish it in this tool. Remember those special provisions and stuff that I talked about for kids and special needs? You can do all of that inside this tool. You get a will, you get a living trust, you get a pour over will, you get your financial documents, and you get your healthcare initiatives. So one other piece important piece that goes with this is inside the tool, there's access to about 30 videos. These are not long videos, but they explain all of the concepts. This is US law, right? So it's really going to tell you exactly how the system works. I find that to be immensely valuable in getting the training and totally worth taking the time using the 15-day trial. So what else comes with that is you've got the ability that you can create your plan in the system. So you can create it, you can draft the documents, you can do all that. You just can't print everything out until you pay for the plan. So if you like that, when you do this, I'm giving you a discount code, Quartz1445, Quartz1445.